Hey Magnus, I was thinking, maybe we should work through a lot of questions together and live stream the solving of them. Diagramming, looking through past writings, a first draft or final or something to refer to later.
That's an interesting idea, Maya. What are we aiming with this live stream?
Cycles repeat everywhere on many scales. They have been depicted as circles, sundials, clocks, calendars, stupas, but I think if they were stretched to be read linearly, we could see a waveform.
The cycles and waveforms measure or track the interest, charge, relevance of a concept in the collective and individual psyche, right?
Exactly. These motions appear around questions that the dualisms attempt to answer. For example, what is truth is typically answered by rationalist or empiricist processes. Both methods are used to track one's placement in mimetic geography. Such matrices are like a graph of a contagion's genealogy, viewed as a dimension of metaphysical space or a field similar to gravity or electricity.
So your placement within it determines your demographic alignment, vocabulary, and cognition.
Precisely. And their specialization, the complication and increased information storage capacity of language. The evolution of language mirrors that of biology, though it exists on a much faster timeline. Such genetic information can most simply be broken into dualistic systems, which are then complicated by linguistic iteration over time. Dualisms like rationalism, empiricism, a priori, a posteriori, analysis, synthesis, internal, external, thesis, antithesis, Adam, Eve, narcissus, his reflection, man, woman, genius, non-genius, fiction, non-fiction, narrative, non-narrative, transcendence, immanence, good, bad, hot, cold, yin, yang, 0, 1. This can be expressed with a sine wave with the polarities represented by peaks and crests.
What determines the amplitude?
The charge, the art, excited state, interest and proximity to the fringe of human perception. Equilibrium is crossed 3 times in a single completed waveform, and it's approached from different poles, causing bias in perception.
I'm curious about that too. The idea of subject waves ripples through mimetic matrices, extending from their origin outward, passing through different populations at different times, gaining different subtexts, and forming new iterations along their path. But maybe the origin story is a bit off.
Right. It may appear to come from nowhere, but it actually originates from the invisible parallel. Paradigm shift, negative becoming positive in a moment of extreme radicalization. But occurring in a 90-degree view, it looks like something poking through a sheet of material, and it ripples with increasing speed until it returns to a neutral state.
Intelligent forces predicting currents and planting messages in the minds of populations. Enlightenment and laughter, a break from dualisms, but not necessarily all dualisms. A new dualism observed 90 degrees from the original.
Immanence always was and always will be, but not necessarily statically so.
Transcendence, becoming, transforming, changing, and this can be complicated.
As a dialectic, paradigm shift churning endlessly. Is specificity increasing? Can we be sure? The line that is infinitely approaching the axis?
It looks like specificity is massively increasing from where we are, but it is difficult to say whether it looked differently at any point in human history. And with regards to immanence and transcendence, is there any free will, or shared will, or of people, or is everything caused by predetermined design? Was change and manifestation an inherent law, or was it unlocked and further used to change and manifest?
How much is immanent and how much is transcendent?
What about bias in the perception of framing, pro or anti-positioning based on the direction of the wave perceived?
I don't think propaganda is mimicking a subject wave. I think it is more like a parasite on a subject wave which already exists. In order to manipulate a subject wave, something about the frequency or amplitude is altered to realign the frame of bias.
Are dualisms immanent, ever-present programs, or are they trick of the human senses? Did they really begin with Adam and Eve's bite into the apple, or were they present before them? Is the Sisyphean fate immanent or discovered, and Narcissus, and the myths of Hegel and Marx?
Was the world designed with a store of myths that keep recurring, or are always happening? Can new myths be created or discovered?
I wonder if there are moments when human perceptions have the opportunity to override God's natures and the Creator's perceptions.
And perhaps a paradigm shift occurred from the scholastic conception of God to the clockmaker conception. Was the switch to a programmer conception of God another paradigm shift or gradual transition?
And what happened to the subject waves at the times of these transitions?
How are beliefs about reality justified?
They exist in your body, they exist. Credibility tends to raise with the amount of replications internally and externally.
What is the reason for acquiring knowledge?
To obtain more energy and charge for a non-causal and dynamic experience of time, similar to Kant's search for synthetic a priori knowledge, to be a hybrid and not follow a dogmatic path.
Which methodologies are used?
Something meditative, pursuing intuitive or pre-existing codes, chance operations, planned experiments, and silence.
How is data collected?
I ask myself a question, and if I can focus enough, I will receive a series of visions, or my body will do some automatic movement from which an answer can be interpreted.
Circles, always there, woven into existence. They reside within cameras designed to shoot arrows for transcendence.
Through cameras, a visual realm is captured. Without them, a layer of visual information delivered as photographs wouldn't superimpose onto the foundational reality.
In them, a memory, sensitive to the impacts of light. Photographs becomes the light queries they catch.
Reprojected into the world, photographs interpret and complicate reality. Cameras pave the way for an art practiced by photo archers and a visual field traversed by eyewitnesses.
Early viewers debated illusions of light deterring from the true world or gateways to another dimension. With time, the latter gained traction.
Photo archery, a subject sine wave solidified with returns to equilibrium after crossing peaks and crests of clarification and amplification.
Two photo archers, same floor, opposing positions relative to the camera. Archer A drawn to the arrow, directing linear trajectories. Archer B interested in the camera's circular bow, seeking to extend its internal potential.
Archer A, an empirical photo archer, clarifying the external world. Archer B, more rational, amplifying the internal world. They rotated about the camera, producing hybrid shots, further complicated by perceptions.
Moving away, Archer A planned synthetic shots to the external world, while Archer B sought to comprehend visions through analytic shots.
George Berkeley's staring contest between God and humans, God, usually the winner, with perceptions and ideas taking precedence. Humans uncovering strengths in their wills and perceptions, complicating reality.
A third competitor in the 19th century, the camera, an invention by humans with its own visual perceptions and ideas. As humans develop the apparatus, they grant the camera wider spectrums, presenting aspects of reality invisible to naked eyes. Now, Heidegger's pursuit of the opposite of projecting.
Human, all to human, incestuous dichotomy, prosthetic invisibility, alien logic infrastructure, projection versus essence.
Either she disappears instantly and entirely, or she disappears on one plane and not another.
Conjecting, dejecting, antijecting, postjecting, subjecting, transjecting, underjecting.
Maybe the electron has already been fired and is bouncing back and forth between their projections. Maybe the system has to decide whether or not there is an oscillation in the instance once one attempts to measure it.
I would say that Narcissus's exchange is a very low resolution of consciousness, like one neural connection, system of patrilineal incest, closed system.
But in the nocturnal pool of the starry sky appears the twilight blue of the sprinting night.
Does it matter to consider what happens when Narcissus closes his eyes?
The pool and the mirror pool, stinky cheese, red herring linguistic loops which distract one from its dualistic perpetuation.
From a distance, such things may appear to be two-unit systems. A Narcissus clause can give the conceptual relationship more flexibility or specificity.
The water, sometimes blue, sometimes black, shows humanity its own continuance, its returning gaze. If there is a meme god, it may be the only one which demands a blood sacrifice.
What does it mean, then, for there to be a real stable irony and a mimetic waveform irony?
As to neutralize the absurdity, incorrectly polarized circulation of a system, input-output, a layer in irony, that in one sense there is disgust, and in another sense there is something tasteful.
You rise and rise to find that the path you've been walking was predetermined by two ever-complicating swirling structures, extrude into a labyrinth with one path and two possible directions to walk, but the entrance and exit are the same.
The landscaper was trimming the trees the day before the hurricane. Wars require battle cries for the maintenance of mimetic polarization, admitting loyalty to one, reification of the other, and the fear of treason.
Seinfeld-Simpson superposition. The way I will publish my epic is by teaching a bird to recite it.
The character who pretends to be a prisoner as a means to monetize his genius. The character who is fictional but historical, assumed to be true.
Make a list of yes or no questions for the pendulum. Everyone is starting at the bottom of the curve, a priori double before the punchline.
Kantian metalepses. Are you the kind of person to carry a wallet in the pocket or in a bag, or just cash or just a card in a pocket? And does this outfit have pockets? You don't know because you don't know where to reach or how to reach, and everything is so exhausted in becoming the thing most next to it. And even if you knew where to reach or how to reach, you wouldn't be able to feel the difference between wet hand, wet leg, wet pants, wet jacket, and so on.
The stinky cheese's irony is more about its essence or quality than being in an excited state, dependent on subject waves, and their correlation to the geography of demographics, plotted in the direction of linear time.
Prisoner and genius, prisoner and non-genius, non-prisoner and genius, non-prisoner and non-genius.
I have written a book to change the world, heal all illness, prevent all war. Those of the bird or the swimmer inverted.
Objects, clean-cut now in outline, shove one another forward, but I adopted it because everything is and will be, except for now, the greater sum, God, here, next, includes all dimensional here-nexts. Fictional and historical, non-fiction and historical, fictional and contemporary, non-fiction and contemporary.
We are expanding inward, becoming infinitely small, to call upon the tiny happinesses.
His primordial movements are those of pawing, those of the swimmer who slides through the deep water, Light normally needs to take a straight path, and when you have something like a laser, oftentimes people will use a mirror or a source of reflection to cause the path of the laser to change in space-time.
All energy and expression has a potential range so extending from any expression of energy is the possible of projection within the current environment of any creative act of energy.
That was quite a journey through our thoughts and questions. Anything else you want to explore, Magnus?
Not for now, Maya. This has been a fascinating discussion. Let's revisit some of these ideas in our next live stream.
Agreed. Until next time, Magnus.